this job has brought you in front of all kinds of walks of life.
It has, actually. Statesville Avenue. I'll never forget the day I was sitting at the front. I'd chosen to sit there, greeting our customers as they came in for customer pickup. And a bear just kind of wandered up on the concrete and then decided to stretch himself at the front door, full up, stretching. And I immediately got a little nervous. My heart started to palpitate, and I went around the corner. We had this wall behind the desk that separated us from that back room. And George Gaddis was there. He was our UST delivery manager. And I said, George, come here. And he comes out and he's like, hey, what's going on? He's real casual, He walks out and I go, there's a bear at the front door. He literally pushed me out of the way, ran behind the door. And I was like, what do we do? So interestingly enough, we called the police, and the police told us to call the animal control. And the person on the phone says to me, well, do you feel like you're in any danger? And I was like, well, they're not inside the building now, but I do feel a little nervous. My car's outside and I'm going to have to leave at some point. And they told us that unless they came inside the building, we felt threatened. We were going to leave them in their natural habitat. So we just were very cautious leaving that day.
Well, I would imagine so.
Join Charlie Maloof as he explores the personal journeys of Broad River Retail's very own memory makers. Welcome to Stories from the River.
Hey guys, welcome to Stories from the River with Cherrie Rivera. Cherrie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It's exciting to be here today.
I'm so glad to have you on. We've been looking forward to this conversation. So before we get too far into it, Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background prior to joining the river.
Okay. So I am married. I've been married for 28 years to my husband, who's retired military. I have 3 grown sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, and recently a 6-month-old grandson. So
congratulations.
Yeah, that's my personal story. My background prior to joining the river was in education, actually. I loved early childhood development. I've done childcare. I've done had a preschool when I was in Okinawa, Japan, had a preschool. Since we were a military family, we moved all over. I have been a substitute teacher, a classroom teacher, always in elementary school, reading specialist, all of that until my husband retired, came to Charlotte, and then I decided I wanted to try something a little bit different. So reached out, answered an ad, and had myself an interview.
And there we go.
There we go.
So Cherrie, you've got a really interesting career. When did you originally join Broad River?
April of 2008.
April of 2008. And we're going to go through your entire career arc, or most of it, I guess. There was a brief interruption, and then you returned. But you've worn a lot of hats here with us. I mean, I've got to check my notes on this one. So you've worked at the river. You worked at the river for like 11 years until 2019, April 2019. And then you left for a couple years, and then you came back. And but before we get into that, I tend to think that most people remember their first day. You've got the unique situation of having had 2 first days. Do you remember your original first day at the river?
I do, actually. And I just was talking about this to someone who said, I remember your first day. And I was like, wow, really? So it was at Statesville Avenue. I had interviewed there previously at the DC. And when you walk in, there was this big open space. And we have some desks all along this wall. But it was it was a big space, right? So we walked in, and no one greeted me at the door. And I was like, this is interesting. It's my first day. I'm just waiting, and I'm looking. And I can see people sitting there looking at me. And then around the corner came Chris Dulski. So Chris Dulski and Forrest Stewart actually were the ones that interviewed me previously. So he welcomed me in, introduced me to the team. Very small team. There was like 5 people there. So, but I remember Lynn Bass. She wasn't Lynn Bass at the time, but Lynn Morrow at the time. Met Lynn, Victor Medina, who is still with us today. Met him, and then we had a couple other of our CX reps that were there as well. But very small team, but I remember it very vividly. And at that moment, I said, I want to change the way we walk into this building.
That's not a bad thing. Or just the way that people feel on their first day.
Right.
Yeah, because people remember it. Do you remember your second first day?
I do. And my second first day was even better, actually. Of course it would be. I was much more confident, comfortable. I was looking forward to seeing people again and meeting them. So I drove up to to Fort Mill and spent a few minutes with Manny. Got to say hello to Tim Sales and some people I hadn't seen in a long time. And then I made my way over to Four Oaks. So it was a long day, right?
Long day.
Drove over to Four Oaks first day. Walked in, introduced myself to Keegan, and he gave me a tour of the building. It was so beautiful. And I was really excited just to see the growth. When I had previously left, we were talking about Four Oaks, and the construction, I think, had just started, but I hadn't seen any of the development, so it was really exciting to see it. It was clean, and the people were really friendly, and I was like, this is great. And then when I finally got my laptop, there was this beautiful video welcoming me back. So I saw some old faces and some new faces, but it was just a great way to come back and really felt like I'd made the right decision. So it was a good feeling.
That's great. It sounds like there may have been a delay on getting you that laptop.
There was a little bit of a delay, but when I got it, I was like, oh, that was so great.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
It was worth the wait for sure.
Good. So I mentioned earlier you've worn many hats in the back of house functions, right? Starting with order management, which I think probably today would be, or maybe it was an early version of supply chain. And so you looked after their open orders, then logistics, then operations, then inventory control, then quality control, and now operational excellence.
Right.
Were you asked to move into these various areas, or was it something that you sought out and wanted to do?
It's a combination of both, actually. Sometimes it just was a natural evolution. So as the company continued to grow or there was a need, I was always one to raise the hand. So I've been referred to at times as a Swiss Army knife. So whenever there was a problem or an opportunity for us for an improvement, it was like, let's see what Cherrie can do.
Let's go to the Swiss Army knife.
So let's bring her in. So then I would kind of just, I'd morph my way into that area and start to build a small team. So some of it was natural. And then there were other times with inventory specifically where I raised my hand and I remember I was asking Chris Dulski at the time, please let me do this. I know I can do it. So it's a combination of both.
That's great.
Yep.
So, having worked from 2008 through 15, really in the old Statesville Avenue location, I'm sure you got some memories other than the bear story.
Right.
What do you remember about the early years?
So, the customer pickup experience was different. And I mentioned that I had wanted to change that, like day one, I was like, this is just interesting. So I actually moved myself from where I was sitting and volunteered to sit at the front door.
Really?
Not that I wanted to be the receptionist, but I felt like that was something we needed to do to serve our guests a little bit better. And it also gave me a window seat, right?
Yeah. Perk.
Yeah. Hence that put me first in front of the bear. But yes, but so that, just the small group, I was exposed to a lot there. I remember when I was initially interviewed, it was like, we're not really sure where you're gonna land here, but we know there's a place. And I was willing to do all kinds of things. And I was a military spouse, so I'd been a lot of places and very adaptable, and I was up for that. But we were always changing, always trying to grow. How do we get better? How do we improve? And we did different delivery types, and we had different delivery companies while we were in that facility. And then that's also where we did our Storis ERP conversion training was on site there. So
we'll get into that today.
A lot of time spent at that facility, yes.
Do you recall when we first started ordering containers?
I do.
And why is that such a vivid memory?
I do. Well, it was a combination. So Janet Limeculer would do part of it, and then I was responsible for the other parts. So she would manually enter them in the system. And then I'm going to make a confession here today. I actually made a mistake during containers, but this was a great learning opportunity for me, and I was happy to be able to share this today. But yeah, we had the containers. They were keyed in the system manually, and then I needed to go in and delete the purchase orders so we wouldn't get them twice. And then when they came in, we would do all this stuff to get it. So it was very, very manual.
A lot of manual.
Yeah, a lot of manual processes. But in the course of that, and as I said, I had a responsibility of canceling the purchase order and watching it on Ashley Direct. And I remember one day I got a call. They were going to deliver these 2 containers with this purchase order number, and we were only supposed to have 1. So instantly I knew that I had, made a mistake. And I was like, how am I going to handle, communicating that? I owned it, right? So I went in and I told Chris Dulski after I was sweating and so nervous and said, I need to tell you something. I made a mistake. And then told him, and he thought about it for a minute, and I'll never forget, he like leaned back in his chair and he crossed his arms. If you know Chris, you know, he's like, oh, you're like, what are we going to do here? And he goes, well, we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. So, and I said, I've already checked all the other ones. There's no more. I wanted to make sure. And then he said that he would handle the communication. And it was a great learning opportunity for me. I remember calling Janet and telling her as well. But it was just really, it's good to fail sometimes. And it's good to have forgiveness and understanding. It was a coaching opportunity for me. I don't regret that it happened. I'm sorry it happened for you, Charlie, that we ordered that extra product, but nowadays you'd be really excited we got an extra container, right?
Well, yes and no. So, but yeah, look, at the end of the day, you know, at that time, I think you triggered my memory. I remember some memory of that, but I think that, first of all, people are going to make mistakes. We're human. And especially when we have so many manual processes, ultimately you can go upstream and say, the systems, the ERPs, they're wrought with failure when you have those manual processes. That's why we try to put, you know, different things to be good checks and balances to prevent those. But also you'd built up so much goodwill. Like we knew what type of worker you were and integrity you had. So mistakes are going to happen, and nothing, as long as you scuff your knee, it's not going to kill you. You'll probably grow back stronger, and you won't make that. I bet you never made that mistake again.
Never did.
Yeah.
But the opportunity just to be able to admit that you'd made a mistake, and then to be able to receive that feedback without, there wasn't a slap on the hand, or I wasn't made to feel bad. It was like, we need to learn through this and move forward. But it taught me as a leader to, looking back, people do make mistakes. A mistake is not necessarily intentional, right? So most of the time it's not. So we need to be able to coach through those, and that has stuck with me all these years.
Well, I think Chris's question that he asked you, like, well, let's make sure it doesn't happen again, is the really important one. I like to say, let's don't pay tuition twice.
Right.
Pay tuition the first time on that one. Let's don't make another mistake on that same mistake. And this, it's like what Maxwell says, let's fail forward.
Right.
And he likes to say, hey, don't think of it as winning or losing. Think of it as winning or learning. So it's a learning moment.
It was.
And we move forward. What did you learn about leadership from Chris Dolsky during that moment?
I was really blessed to be in that building during that time, because there's just a lot of change, and it was all new to me. I didn't know operations. I didn't know warehousing. I had no idea about furniture. So, but he exposed me to a lot and allowed me to ask the right questions, and never discredited the questions that I had. And he took the time to explain them, so that I understood the whys. And then allowed me to get my hands dirty sometimes, getting in there and doing a little research on my own. So it didn't always give me the answer, but sometimes allowed me to find it and drum up more questions. So it was really good.
Well, I know he was always a very big believer and advocate for Cherrie Rivera.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah. So very few people probably still remember Savvy Spaces at this point, which is probably just a small footnote in the company's history at this point. But I bet you could probably share a few stories or memories from a logistics standpoint. What about the 18-month Savvy Spaces experiment that we ran 10, 12 years ago that you remember or that you have?
So at that time I was over logistics and then the back order report. Do you remember the back order report? So we used to have to call our customers and give them a time frame as to when the product was coming in. So Savvy Spaces created a lot of back order sales.
Oh, yeah.
So with the product coming from various vendors, they all had different rules. They all had different ways to communicate. They all had different lead times, different terms. And so it was a lot of relationship building, a lot of organizational spreadsheets, just making sure what their timelines were so that we were communicating accurately with the customer, and then trying to make some notes and for our customer in the tickets in the profit system. So a lot there, that it takes a long time to get special ordered product. And
a lot longer than we realized.
Yes, but at the same time, we had product waiting for the Porter Group from Ashley, which was the B697, which we still sell. So very interesting. People would wait 6 and 9 months for product. And to me, I was floored. I was like, I just couldn't imagine doing that. But just staying organized around that, but the relationship building and the patience and just understanding that if a customer really wants something, they're willing to wait. And so when we're calling and giving them new time frames, it's just the communication, being transparent, no false promises, right? Never overpromise and underdeliver. So a lot of those things stuck with me over that time. And Savvy Spaces was definitely an experience for us all.
It was like learning about the supply chain issues that COVID brought about before 10
That's
years
right,
before
it
COVID.
ever came. Yeah.
So, okay, so then we had this big ERP conversion, and you were part of the core team, the store's core team. What can you tell us about being a core team member?
So that was my first opportunity, I would say, to partner with other departments and to collaborate within the organization. So we used to have sales teams come out and do sales trainings at Statesville Avenue, but I'd never met the people in accounting, or I'd never met, IT or anything like that. Very siloed. And, we didn't have Teams meetings back then, so it was very different. But just to be able to understand the operation as a whole and how we impact each other and what needed to come first, what information was required for that next department to be successful. And since I was new to operations anyway, it was just a great way. And I'm a sponge. I love problem solving. So it was very exciting for me. But the relationship building during that time, asking all the questions and then the documentation, it was just, it's irreplaceable. So
rewriting the business rules from scratch almost,
right.
and trying to understand them forwards and backwards. Got it. So then we saw a huge improvement in our inventory accuracy once you became the inventory control manager. Surprise, surprise. How did you get control of our inventory accuracy during that time? And this is the time, like after the ERP conversion, things went awry. You raised your hand, said, "Hey, I think I can fix it," and then you took it over, and then you got control of it. Like
That's
this
right.
is like the September 2015 thereabouts.
Yes, and I did raise my hand. It was frustrating for me to watch, and I just knew that I could do it. I had no experience, none. I had none. I understand the store
We were
system.
out of options.
That's right. We were out of options, and I'm so glad that you were, because I think that was a pivotal time for me in my career. It was like my first big win that I felt that I owned, right, from start to finish. I raised my hand, so there was a lot of responsibility, but a lot of trust that was given to me during that time. And so what we did is we actually went back to stores and say, how is this supposed to happen? And we listened, right? And remember, we had a whole little playbook that they gave us, and they broke it down to us. And these were things that I don't know if we were trying to trick the system, but we were definitely stuck in our old way of thought prior to that. But I just decided I'm going to follow the rule book, right? So we did that. We implemented a cycle count program, and it doesn't take a lot of people to implement a cycle count program, but we were very consistent with real-time reconciliation, and I think that still lives on today in each of our DCs.
So I love that. So you went back to the folks who created the software package and said, how is this supposed to work? And we're going back to the basics. And then let's just do it the right way, not the way we thought the other system worked. And so that's brilliant.
Yep.
Simple, but brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah. So then we were humming along pretty nicely, once we kind of got that fixed. And so 2016 to 2019, we're in Fort Mill, the first 3 years there. And at one point you moved into quality control from inventory control. What is quality control exactly, and why did you move into this area of the business?
So quality control is where our as-is product is, or what we would consider as unsellable, right? So that's our shop where we do repairs. But it's also where we disposition product to the outlet or maybe salvage or even donation. So we were talking about shrink, which is an inventory term, right? And we wanted to be able to manage that a little bit better. It made sense. I do not know how to fix furniture, much like I didn't know how to do inventory. I do know how to do inventory now. I have not yet learned how to fix furniture. But what I do understand is processes, people, and how to lead people. And so we just started, it's an as-is product and we want to return it to stock. So that's an inventory stock adjustment. I was able to partner with some members of our team, and as we were planning for Fort Oaks actually to open, and implemented a apprentice program where we started to train people amongst our team, some of our assemblers, even some runners or facility techs that were interested in learning how to repair furniture. It's a craftsmen are hard people to find, right? It is an old trait that a lot of people used to do, and not as many go into that now. It's more of a hobby.
So you're doing upskilling.
Yes, and so we're fortunate enough to have a member of our team, Erin Knipe, who was willing and definitely qualified to move into that role, and she became the trainer, and she's continued to grow with us as well in this capacity. But it was really exciting for us, and still is, I believe, a partner. Quality control and inventory live harmoniously.
Got it. Okay, so then after 11 years at the river, this is 2008, about April 2019, and you were really doing well and had worn many, many hats in ops, and you'd been promoted to a senior manager at this time, but you left. Why did you make the decision at that time to leave?
It was a hard decision to make. It was like I was breaking up with my family, so it took many months for me to do that. We had sold our house. My husband was already working in Charleston, and we wanted to have a home in Charleston, so we decided to sell our house here, and I rented an apartment close to this facility, and I was commuting each weekend. And that was going well, but like you said, I had been here for a long time and wore many hats, and I think it got easy for a minute. It was like I wasn't really sure if there was anything more. I'd lost the desire or maybe the drive to try something new. And just it settled down just a little bit. And we went through our purpose rollout, and I really started to think about what is my real purpose, and do I have a purpose here at the river? And I think that was God's way of saying you need to start to pay attention. I'm sending you some signals. So my mother and stepfather had moved out to be close to us when we were in Charlotte. They'd also moved to Charleston. My stepfather had dementia at the time, and this is really personal. Hope this is okay. But so he had dementia, and I was starting to not be as excited about coming to work because I was a little torn. I wanted to spend my time with my mom, helping care for my stepfather, who I love dearly. And I made the decision to step away and move to Charleston so that I could care for him and help my mom. And I'm just so glad I did. I had a year and a half with him. We lost him in January of last year. Thank you. But the time spent just being able to do that with him and to help my mom was, I needed to leave. And
sounds like you made the right decision.
I did. And looking back, I would do the same. I probably would have communicated a little bit more rather than just saying that I need to leave. But it was the right thing to do. And sometimes God just, he puts something on your heart and forces you to make decisions. And that's what happened.
Well, thank you for being open and willing to share that. But then after a 2-year hiatus, you returned to the river. And so, and actually it's been going well last year. You just got promoted.
I did.
To associate director.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And so what led you to returning?
Well, I'd always had a place I had 2 jobs in between. So I worked at a smaller company, and I thought that was going to be great. And I was bored out of my mind. So I didn't stay there. Then I went to a larger warehousing, and I was over their inventory control and did that. And I was currently working, and Janet had called me, and we'd stayed in touch. Not all the time, but we'd always stayed in touch. And she'd actually come to visit me in Charleston, her and her husband. And, so she reached out and said, "Hey, I wonder if you might be interested. There's some talk, and your name's come up a couple of times." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Things are good down here, maybe." And she's like, "Okay." And then I think we maybe have talked twice. And she says, "Well, I think Mandy's going to call you." And I was like, "Okay." And so she was planting the seed. So I know how Janet works. So this was already part of the plan, right? So Manny called me, and I took his call, and he said he wanted to come back, asked if I was interested, and said he had some projects that he thought I would be helpful in. And we talked for 2 or 3 times. And I was talking to my husband, and he goes, "I don't know why we're still talking about this. I know that's where you want to go." I mean, because I came home like, "You're never going to guess who I heard from today." And then I was like, "You're never going to guess who called me today." And I'm like, "Well, he called me today." And there's an offer, and we're talking through the details. And he says, "I don't know why you're still sitting on this. Just tell him yes." And
that's great.
Yeah, so we did, and here I am.
But you did not come back to the same role, did you?
No, I did not. So operational excellence is the department that I returned to, and it was to help with projects. So, and it's exactly what Manny had described to me. And he said, "We need your help in a couple areas, and we have some things coming up."
A lot of things.
Yeah, and he told me what those were, and he listed it out. He goes, "We opened our new DC in 4 Oaks, and it was during the pandemic, and I think you could add some value there just with your experience. And so I'd like you to spend some time there." he did say it'd be 6 to 8 weeks, and it turned out to be much longer than that, but I won't hold that against him. We so did that. He mentioned the Wilmington project at the time, so I think that was in negotiation perhaps, and then Spartan Ridge was also on the horizon. So, and I was like, well, what happens after that? He goes, don't worry, there's plenty more. There's plenty more. And so it was an easy decision, and came back in this operational excellence role, and just, I'll go where you need me. Yeah. And I just took on that mindset, and it's been a great ride ever since.
That's awesome. So glad that you did. You. Okay, so now talking about those projects that you just mentioned, since you came back, let's get into a few of those. So Project Seahawk, the Wilmington project, and Coastal Connection. So you were really instrumental in helping us onboard the operations team in Wilmington, and then ultimately helping us, to merge the operation into our Four Oaks operation, and leaning on that experience with Profit Systems probably helped out. And what can you share with us about the Project Seahawk and Coastal Connection experience?
So the Profit System, it's amazing how easy that comes back, because you're like, oh, I don't know, that's been a while.
It's like riding a bike?
Yeah, it really is. But the good part about it is there's other members of our team that also knew the Profit System. So there were times that I had to reach out, and I reached out to Hope a couple times, like, I know there's a way to do this, I just can't find the screen. And she goes, oh, and then she'd, tell me what it is. And then we'd talk through like some planning. So I had people to reach out to, Travis Barkley, Janet for some things, and then Hope. But it is like riding a bike. But it did help in understanding and connecting with the staff that was there. So if I had come in not knowing the system, I don't think I would have been as well received, because I could come in and help them and add value, and I wasn't asking them to tell me everything. Right. So it was an easy way for us to partner together. And we actually got a couple good people out of that.
That's awesome.
Acquisition, yes.
And so now they're being delivered out of Four Oaks. The consolidation is complete, and everything could not have gone better. So
great.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if you could go back to your very first day, the original first day, in April 2008, and give a message to a younger Cherrie about, what would you tell her about what would you tell yourself about what life is going to be like at Broad River Retail?
So I would say buy some roller skates because we're going to move fast.
Okay.
And you also have to be, when you're on roller skates, you have to have some balance. So you need to be able to balance too. So buy roller skates. Don't be afraid to try something new. Be ready for recognition, and and raise your hand.
Well, roller skates I can do. I'm glad you didn't say skateboard. So
no skateboards.
Yeah, no skateboard. Okay, that's it. But that's great. Speed and balance, and get ready for recognition. That's really that's a great call out. Of all of your various achievements and accomplishments here at the River, what are you most proud of?
I would say there's several. 3. The Storis ERP conversion. But even prior to that, when AFI connected with replenishment, when we had the AFI replenishment program, that rollout, that was really big.
It was game changing.
It was game changing for us, for sure.
2012.
Yeah, you probably have better at dates than I am.
11 or 12.
But that prepared us for the ERP conversion, because we had to do it again and make sure, because that was one of the conditions, right? When we were going to get Storis, is like, we'll get Storis, but we have to have replenishment. And so that set me up for the second one, and I was able to partner with Storis in New Jersey with Janet. We went up several times, partnered with some of our lean partners up there. So very proud of that. And then I would say the inventory improvement that we had, because we were at 74%, I think, when I stepped in, and we raised it to 99%.
This is the 2015 month.
Yes,
yeah.
But that was big.
74% accuracy, audience, is no bueno, not good. You want that to be like 4 nines, 99.99. Yeah.
Yes.
No, not good. Hey, you mentioned the lean team. What is the lean team for our audience?
Yeah, so the lean team was our lean partners. So they were Ashley licensees across the country. So we had, and I remember there's a few specifically. So the Spencer group, they called that TSG?
Yeah, before they merged with Dufresne, they were the Spencer Group, TSG, and then there was the Dufresne Group.
The Dufresne Group, and then Hill Country Holdings. So we partnered with them. So I've actually got got some connections with them even now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we used to have these meetings, and they were, I don't remember the frequency of them actually, but we would talk about what was happening within our facility. And this was prior to Storis. And then when we started talking about moving away from profit, we all met and talked about what that system should look like. And I remember looking at different programs or different ERPs. So we did that. But did a lot of partnership and a lot of just collaboration amongst departments. And
well, I think, iron sharpens iron, and that's kind of maybe the phrase I would use to say what the benefit of a performance group is. And with the right performance group, with the right members, and we certainly wanted our leaders in various departments to collaborate because you're solving the same problems. But that's the Lean was the name of that particular performance group.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're getting into this. You've worked with so many different people and have had multiple leaders or managers you've worked with. I'd like to give you an opportunity to reflect on the impact of some of your fellow memory makers. Who are some of the memory makers who have really impressed you along the way?
There's so many. That's what happens when you work for such a long time. Several of them are still with us and some are not. Janet Limeculer. I feel like she's a peer, but she's also a leader of our organization now. I always look to her as someone I could collaborate with. Nancy Hendrickson, who was with us for a long time, retired a couple of years ago now, I think.
Yeah, a year or two ago.
Yeah, so I learned a lot from her. I hadn't been involved previously with a lot of HR issues. We called it HR at the time before it was HC. So Nancy Hendrickson. Kim Harkness, I think when she joined us, she brought just a different level of energy and excitement. But then there's the Steve Carries, too. What a smart man.
Happiest man on earth.
Happiest man on earth, right? But just, not only happy, but just he has the biggest heart, right? And then Bill Woodman. I think that Bill Woodman is just something I really admired from the beginning. We've had great conversations talking about inventory, but we partnered a little bit on the Project Seahawk and she's just, there's so many. I think your leadership, and even I'm going to reflect even back to Jonathan Ishii. I remember way back in the day we had this group, and I was trying to think of the name, and I can't remember. You'll probably know.
Yeah, I'll try to help you out.
Yeah. We used to go to the stores, and we did the walkthroughs, and we would write observations.
Not excellent every day, the knee, because we were doing the excellence every day.
Yeah, was that it? But I remember doing that.
It was a bad name.
But we did that with you and with Jonathan at the time.
Yeah.
And we walked through the stores and we made observations and we talked, and I wasn't in retail, so it was like the first time I had the opportunity but I learned at the time, what did the racetrack mean, and why did we do certain things, and how do we move things around? So very interesting. But the leadership style that you guys had, the hands-on, and then Manny now, since I've been back, I've been partnered with him, have the opportunity to partner with him, but just your availability. The fact that I've had your cell phone number for I don't know how many years. It's been in my phone. I don't call you or text you all the time, but the fact that you share that with me, and even when I wasn't an associate director of operational excellence, back in the day, I had your cell phone number, and Manny too. So it's just that kind of leadership has inspired me to be that same kind of leader, so that we have hourlies on the floor, whether it's in warehouse or something, our memory makers at any level, that we should be approachable.
Yeah, be accessible at the same level. So who are some of the other managers you've had, and some of the ways that their leadership has impacted you? Yeah,
so here, I've been fortunate not to have a lot. So I worked for Chris Dulski for 8 years, and moved into Fort Mill. So then, I left during that time and then came back, and now I'm working with Tim Klaus. So I've been very fortunate to have some tenured people with experience, and then of course you've been constant. I think I've given some examples already.
Okay, got it. Love it. So. But you also mentioned our Lean group, and so you've worked with a lot of external partners and even collaborated with the other licensees. Who have been some of your favorite or most memorable non-memory makers who you've worked with during your time at the River?
Okay. I'm going to say James Jensen.
Oh, yeah.
He's memorable, right?
He's very memorable. Hey, James.
Hey, James. So James Jensen, so partner with him on the replenishment and then stores conversions. Actually, he invited me out to a conversion in Memphis prior to our conversion. So I got to experience that firsthand.
That's very kind of him.
And then Lindsay Stevens, great experience. She's from Hill
Very
Country
smart.
Holding. Yes. And does all kinds of things there. But then also, we might consider him a memory maker now, but Dan Comer.
Yeah.
Yes. So
He's a memory maker.
He is a memory maker.
He's a consultant who's worked with us since 2015. I think I
yes,
called
I think
him.
since 2015.
Yeah.
But I knew him when he was at Hill Country.
Yeah.
I think I'd originally met him then. So hi, Dan. Dan and his wife actually came out to visit me in Charleston and spent some time with us. And, I've just had some great relationships over the time. But, professional relationships have become personal. That's very special.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad you mentioned Dan. I remember calling him in August or July 2015. We needed some help. He was the former VP of IT for Hill Country, which is now part of the Dufresne Spencer Group, by the way. And he's really helped us out now for 7 years.
Yeah.
Now. So it's these key players have been so instrumental. It's great to even partners and friends, and it's a lot of sharing amongst friends. And not even frenemies, just friends. We don't compete with each other. We're just trying to help each other get better and share. And by the way, people have done that for us. We've gone down and had invitations to go to City Furniture and other licensees or Factory Direct, FDE or Boston FAM, and just pick up the phone and always sharing ideas. But there's been some great learnings through that. Okay, so we'll just shift gears just a bit. And so I got an icebreaker question for you.
Okay.
So let's say that you leave again, but this time it's like you're retiring, you're hanging up your operational excellence cleats, and it's time for you to kind of just ride off into the sunset. And you're talking about the good old days. You're sitting back in your rocking chair, drinking your beverage of choice, sweet tea or lemonade or whatever. And you want to be known for 3 words that you want people to remember you by or to represent your legacy. What would those 3 words be?
So in my office, I have 3 things. And they're actually sayings, but I'm going to tell you what those are, and then I'm going to give you the word. So one is be the reason that someone smiles. Okay. And so I want to be known as encouraging. Okay. The other is it always seems impossible until it's done by Mandela. That is resilient. And if I were to describe myself for sure, I would say resilient. Been through a lot, right? And then 2 things that you're in control of in your life, your attitude and your effort. And so I would say intentional. Okay.
So encouraging, resilient, and intentional. That's great. Yes. I think we know you a little bit better. And I love the sayings that go along with it. That's really cool. So Cherrie, what do you think are or have been the secrets to your success?
My faith and my optimism.
I think those are 2 great things. And what are your best daily habits that have served you well or that currently serve you well?
I would say prayer and rest. I had to learn to rest.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. I go all the time and I say yes almost always. And I had to learn to say no and to prioritize myself.
Yeah.
So rest is important. And there's an old saying, it says, it's give it to God and go to sleep. It's true, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do in a day.
That's right.
And so it seems simple, but it's not always easy.
Give it to God and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And
I want to say
yourself.
Yes. I want to say one more thing that my grandmother shared with me this years ago. It's the verse from Esther 4:14, and it's perhaps this is the day that you were created for. And since I love to solve problems, and it was like, well, maybe this is it, right? I mean, that's what I feel like. That's what I was created for, to be a solution, and so that's always stuck with me for many reasons, but it works specifically because.
That's a beautiful verse. Perhaps this is the day that you were created for.
This is
it makes you be very intentional about the moments that are presented in front of you and gives you a really positive perspective about those. That's great. Thanks for sharing those. Okay, so mentorship. We've kind of talked about mentors and leaders. Where or from whom do you get your mentorship?
I prefer to get mine just from collaboration.
Okay.
So not a one source, one mind way of thinking. we're just surrounded by so much great talent. And I try to take a little piece from everybody, every encounter that I have. And if I can do that, then I know I'm going to walk away better for it. And then my goal is to share that with someone else.
That's great.
So.
And collaboration being one of our core values, that kind of hits
right.
hits the target on the bullseye right there. Okay, so I know that it always takes a village to achieve success like you've achieved. And so sometimes there's people who don't get the accolades that really deserve them. So who are some of the unsung heroes of your world? Tell us what they do or have done for you.
Well, I'm going to say my grandmother. She just taught me a lot about forgiveness and acceptance. We're not all perfect. We don't all fit in a box. Not everybody has the same path, right? Which is one of the reasons why I was so drawn to children and development. And I like to say that I seek out the one that needs the most help. And I think I do that at work also. I try to find somebody that you can see that spark, but it's like, I just want to help them.
Sorry to cut you off on that, but I don't want to let that thought go.
Okay.
So give us one example of someone who you've recently done that for.
Okay. I have one that sticks out, and I'm going to say it was prior to my leaving. This person was he's no longer with our organization, but it really does stick out, and it's very personal for me. He worked on our receiving team, and he was unloading trucks, and he was always in like a little bit of noise, right? But worked hard and was very polite and did all the other things, but somehow was always involved in the noise, right? Yeah. So I had approached him and asked if he'd be interested in joining the inventory team, just to kind of take him out of that. What would happen if I removed him from that group?
Interesting.
And did that. And he's like, okay. Okay. So we did some training and moved him into this role. And the day that I gave him a laptop, and started training him on that, he was so excited, right?
Really?
And at the end of the shift, he brought it back to me. And he's like, here. And I said, what's wrong? And he goes, I just don't know what to do with this. And I go, well, it's your responsibility. You need to take care of it, right? So you can take it home, you can lock it up, your responsibility. Don't bring it to me every day because I'm not going to be here every day, right? Yeah. And he was like, sat down and he was like, no one's ever trusted me with something like this before. And I was like, that's what it's all about, right? And performed great for us for a very, very long time, very loyal. And still, we both have January birthdays and still sends me text messages now, even though he's moved on to other things. But it's just, those are the stories that stick, right?
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. Thank you. I'm glad we kind of pulled the thread on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what is one thing about Broad River that you think would surprise others from the outside looking in? Maybe a misperception or something.
You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have certificates. We hire for culture more than anything. I think experience helps, but it's not necessarily the decision maker. Culture matters.
It's who the person is.
Yeah, and we're committed to the development of our memory makers.
Okay, love it. So going along kind of that thread, furnishing life's best memories, our organizational purpose. Do you have a favorite Broad River story or memory that you haven't already mentioned that you can share with us?
Yes, and I couldn't wait to get to this question. Okay. I was hoping you would ask me this. So we rolled out there's two, but I'm going to start with the first one. So we rolled out it at the Purpose Statement, or the Purpose Summit. And so we were all excited, and we were in like leadership roles, and retail was all there, and it was great. But it was like, how are we going to connect this to our hourly associates in the warehouse? And so there was a small group of us, and I wish I could remember who all was in the room, and I'm not sure whose idea it was, but I loved it, right? We decided that we were going to talk about one piece of furniture. And we were going to challenge our people to connect with a memory that they had about furniture, because they're not with it all the time. They see it in cartons and plastic, right? So they're handling product, and they're not realizing that it's furniture. So we started telling them stories. And this was at our last Purpose Summit. We talked about telling stories. And so we said, where do you read your bedtime stories to your children? They were like, on the couch or maybe on the bed, right? Okay, and where do you have Thanksgiving dinner? how many of you have ever sat at the kids' table and then moved to the grown-up table, right? So we talked about those things, and then we challenged them to go back and look through those old photo albums and to see if any of the furniture in those triggered memories. And we wanted them to tell us about it. So, and they did. And it was great. We used our team meetings as the source, and we gave them a template. We said, if you send us the pictures, we'll put the picture in this, and we want you to share your story during the team meeting, and then we're going to hang it up in the employee entrance. And I don't know if you remember seeing that.
I just remembered that as you were telling that story.
It was so impactful for our team out in the warehouse. It was amazing. It was the best experience that we've had. And I mean, and I'm excited, and I was trying to find my story so that I could email it to you in advance of this, and it's still on my list. I'm going to send it to you. But I have a table too. It's not Ashley product, and we told them it doesn't have to be, but furniture is important. It's where you sign, it's where you're papered to buy a house, or where you're signing report cards. It's where your kids do their homework.
Yes,
right?
what it's all about is you took a box of packaged goods, which is a commodity, and by telling the story and unlocking the story, you breathe life into it, which you gave it purpose, you gave it a why, you gave it meaning, and that means that, hey, what we're doing here is more than just moving boxes. We're creating stories and these life's best memories. So that's great. I'm glad you told that. Yeah. Can we tell one more? Because you made me think of something else. What about the purposeful spaces?
That was my number 2.
Well, great. So what about just, well, tell us about that. Because I know.
So I think all of our, yes, you know that we did one. So each of our departments were challenged to identify a space that impacted the teams that we lead.
And this was during the third Orange Crush, right?
That's right.
Purposeful spaces. Yeah.
Purposeful spaces. So, and in the warehouse, we were like, well, what can we do in the warehouse? And people were like, oh, I don't know, it's a warehouse. And I was like, well, where do we want our people to be able to rest or relax? And I said, I think it needs to be the break room. And so here I go raising my hand again. So all of a sudden that was my project. So we decided we were going to change the break room. So we solicited a team of talent. We just said, if you are creative or willing to do, we're going to revamp this. And so we got this small team together. And we ended up painting the break room dramatically. Yes. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's got graffiti in it. It's got some bright neon colors.
But it's intentional graffiti.
Intentional. And so we had members of our team, anybody could nominate a word that they thought we should put on the wall. And we knew we were going to put the purpose statement up. So that's as you walk in, it's on the right, furnishing life's best memories. And then we have a motto that we have in quality control, which was the department that I was overseeing at the time, which is never pass on a defect. So that is on a wall. Yeah. And then, but all of the other words. So it was not only just our core values, but it was words that mattered to our associates. So we have words like innovation and we have customer satisfaction. We have those words on there. But then they wanted to celebrate where they worked. So we have a silhouette of Charlotte. Yep. And then we also put the silhouette of Raleigh because we knew that 4 Oaks was coming and we were forward thinking at the time and we were trying to plan for that. So it was really exciting as the team got together and they'd come in and we moved everything out and we have a blue wall, we have an orange wall, we have green wall, yellow wall, lots of bright colors. I think it's due for a refresh now, but it
sounds
looks
like we need a third
amazing.
Skyline. We've got a third distribution center.
I would say yes.
Gotta get one for Spartanburg.
But that was a lot of fun. Yeah. And we even used our RLX partner. We had a member of that team that helped with the graffiti as well. So we include everyone that was in our facility could volunteer to be on this team.
Who knew that being a graffiti artist was part of operational excellence? Only at the river. So, okay, summits, leadership summits, 90-day challenges. We talked about Orange Crush. You've had a chance to participate in several leadership summits, various 90-day challenges, Orange Crush tours, and also purpose summits like Purpose 828. Or like the Purpose Summit we just went to at the University of Notre Dame that 16 of us just attended in May. What do you recall about these various events?
Well, I think it was just the intentionality of bringing us all together. And I've heard on other podcasts, I think I'm not the only one that misses that, right?
Yeah. No,
But it was getting everyone together in a room. So the names that you're only seeing on emails and just being all together, hearing the same message at the same time and feeling the energy is just, it's great. Guest speakers, they're wonderful. And going on it's great. But I think more impactful was just the time spent together, knowing that we're all there for the same reason or the same purpose, and that we want to take this information back and share it with those that we lead. So they're all of them, just it's amazing.
I think that's the common thread, being together and celebrating something together and connecting together it's got a lot of power. It's a lot of work, tires people out, takes a lot of energy. It's expensive, but it's also expensive not to do it because it's the thing that it stops. It's not just the mundane. It's something different and unique, and it slows down time.
That's right.
So, switching gears, Decoy, DC of the Year.
Yes.
We love competition, which I always like to say gets a bad rap because it comes from the root word competare, which means to strive together. We're calling it to thrive together this year. And Tim Klaus was on the podcast and shared with us about Decoy. How is the DC of the Year competition going right now?
Yes, the teams are very excited. They're asking great questions. They now are understanding the whys. Like, why do we need a minimum pick count? Or why do we need to unload in this amount of hours? They're understanding labor hours and why we don't have overtime. So great questions. The team is asking, like, when do the scores come out? Do we know the scores yet? So currently, at the point of this taping, Four Oaks is in the lead. Yeah, but Spartan Ridge did get 5 points last week, so they're tracking. So.
Sounds like they're asking questions that are leading indicators to moving the needle on the metrics.
That's right.
Because they want to try to reverse engineer how to solve it and gain points or gain a lead. That's great.
It's great conversation at team meetings, and we can say, in order for us to get this point this time, if we'd missed it last, what do we need to do? So it's very intentional, but the questions that they're asking are just, people love sports anyway.
Well, business is an intellectual sport. So,
there you go.
It's always the right question that's asked is the way to go.
Right.
Okay, so what happens here at the River that doesn't happen at other companies, in your opinion?
I think we have a lot of fun. When we celebrate our people a lot, and that's by design. That's a choice. It's not that we're giving up production or performance for that. It's part of our culture, and we want people to enjoy coming to work. So we have fun, and we encourage it.
One could say that recognition, celebration, and having fun maybe produces the production and the performance. So, what would it be without it, right?
That's right.
Void of that. Hey, so our company's word of the year for 2022 is thrive. What does it mean for you to thrive?
For me, it goes back to a former word that we've used before, which is impact. So I don't feel like I'm thriving unless I'm making an impact. And so, but thriving for me is moving forward. It's feeling good about it. It's feeling healthy, not just getting the numbers and meeting the numbers and killing yourself to get there. But thriving means you're healthy with it. You're happy with it. There's some joy in the chase or the race that we're doing, and then being able to see the results and understand that, and then resonate with you that you've done a good thing, and it's been a positive experience.
Well, you went back to 2017's word of the year, impact.
Yes.
And then, there is forward and making forward progress in thrive, and forward together was 2021's theme. So there are a lot of unifying threads there.
Yeah. And I would say in order for me to thrive, I need interactions with others. So, this role that I'm in now allows me to travel amongst all three of our DCs, which, I feel like I'm thriving when I'm able to interact. And so it gives me the opportunity to do that and impact others at the same time. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, what advice would you offer up to a fellow memory maker to help him or her thrive this year?
Yeah. Speak up. Tell us what you need. We're only here to help, and let us serve you.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Great advice. If you could change one thing about the company today with the wave of a magic wand, what would it be, Cherrie?
I would change our employee purchase program.
In what way?
I would find a way for every single one of our memory makers to have Ashley furniture in their home.
I love that idea.
So
let's figure it out.
Yeah. I would love it if whether it's through like prizes or, if they got points for meeting KPIs, or they could earn those points and use those points to make purchases in the store. But I'd love to find a way for everyone to experience the product that we have, that we sell.
To make it more attainable. Yeah,
that's right.
Got it. So do you feel that working here at the River has positively impacted your desire for personal growth and development? And if so, how so?
100%. I don't know that I'd ever read a book to help me, because I was in education, so I was always reading books to people and helping them learn to read. So it was different. So when I came to the River and I started to grow, it was like, everyone's reading these books. And we had some book clubs that we did, and we had some recommendations that we had. You've now done a great job of telling us what you're reading. And so I started pulling your books in, and then I find an author that I like, and I try to read all of those. So I think just that alone has been, I love to read anyway, but to make it more personal, that personal development just through reading and learning from others and their recommendations has been great.
Well, I'm glad that the recommendations are helpful. And I got a lot of podcast recommendations too, but other than this one, if you ever want any of those. Okay, so what are you currently reading, or what did you just finish reading? Or?
So I just finished The Chief Joy Officer, and I did, well, I'm going to confess here. So rather than reading, I do a lot of Audible. So I travel a lot. So I do listen to books. So I listened to The Chief Joy Officer. And then I've just started The Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. I've read 3 others of those books. So I've got Dare to Lead, The Power of Vulnerability, and then Daring Greatly. Yeah. So just started this new one. Just started it 2 days ago. So Brené
Brown is great, and love a lot of her content. And I also just listened to the audiobook Chief Joy Officer by Rich Sheridan. And I also listened to him on a podcast, but we got to hear him speak live at the Purpose Summit in Notre Dame. And he's a Menlo Innovations.
Menlo, that's right.
It's a great company.
And it was interesting. Reading that book, and I actually recommended it to a friend of mine who's a Scrum Master. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
It's in IT.
Yeah, he's an IT guy. So I said, hey, you got to read this book. And he's like, I don't know, So I think he's thinking it's going to be touchy-feely. I go, well, it's about programming. I think you'll like it. So.
Well, I like the purpose of the doctor's office, where it was always on time and on schedule. And so he called it the purpose of systems. So there's a lot of ways that he kind of went into that. Okay. Well, when you stop working for the day and you have some time for yourself, what do you like to do for fun or to relax?
I love to be outside. And I think just not hiking or doing anything dangerous, but I love to just be outside. I like to listen to the trees and listen to the birds, and I love to take walks. It allows my mind to stop, and also it's healthy. But I love to be outside. So I have a great wraparound porch with a porch swing, so that's one of my favorite places. But relationships are important to me. So whether it's with family or friends, I'm a people person. So
love it. So connecting with people.
That's right.
And to someone who's not a memory maker, and they may be watching this and they're going through the recruiting process, or they're thinking of joining the company or coming to the River, what advice would you offer to that person?
I would tell them the same thing I told my son, Patrick.
Yeah, so your son has joined the company.
So he did. So he joined the company in January. But what I told him was, because he was saying, I want to look for a great opportunity. He loves sales. And he loves people too. He loves to talk, and he's a mover and a shaker, right? So I said, I think you need to look at coming to Ashley. And he's like, well, I don't know, Mom, you're there. It might be weird. But I said, no, I don't think it'll be weird. We're really big. But, if you come, there's just so much opportunity here. So listen to our stories, talk to our people, listen to this podcast, right? You'll be encouraged. But, ask us questions, challenge us. We're going to be transparent. So what you hear is real, right? So take a chance.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, before I let you off the stage here, by the way, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I know I've missed a bunch, but I don't think so today.
Okay. You've done a great job. Thanks for coming on. I want to read, I asked a couple people for some thoughts about you, and I'd love to just read those. We'll put this in the outtake section.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I did. A little surprise here.
Oh, boy.
So I asked Tim Klaus about you, and he says, Cherrie shines bright. She is someone you want to be around, someone you want to bounce ideas off, someone that makes each person she has the opportunity to meet better. Cherrie is always prepared for a situation, ready to embrace, encourage, execute at the highest level. She accomplishes these with positive attitude, effort, and with a huge smile. We are so excited for Cherrie's leadership. Her promotion of this transformational department is so critical to our team's future success. I'm so excited to be part of this incredible season alongside Cherrie.
Wow.
That was from Tim. I got another. I got a couple more. Here's from Manny. Cherrie has such an inspirational story. I'm excited to have it shared. Cherrie is a people-centric leader that leans into memory maker development and process. She has championed and created our apprentice program for our shop and helped develop some of our strongest furniture craftsmen, shop techs. Her return is a different story. When I called Cherrie, she was ready, expecting the call. Why? Because she had been praying for a return to a company that valued culture and people. When I called, she told me she had prayed faithfully for this type of opportunity. It was a memorable call. And to jump in and make an impact, Cherrie is a loyal and genuine leader. She helped us with process improvements in Four Oaks and the Wilmington, North Carolina acquisition, Project Seahawk, which we discussed. She was recently promoted to Associate Director of Operational Excellence. I look forward to partnering with her as we continue to drive innovation and collaboration across our 3 DCs. And I'd also reached out to Chris Dolsky, who sent me the text message thread that he had shared with you when you got promoted. And I guess y'all still stay in touch.
Yes.
And he had some encouraging words that he shared as well. So,
wow.
Cherrie, I'm so grateful for you and thankful for you and all that you've done these 11 plus 1, going on 13, 12 plus years with the river. Yeah. And you've done a great job. And it's so awesome to have your story shared. And thanks for coming on and just being who you are, an authentic, real leader that drives transformational operational change for us.
Well, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, and I just love it here. So this was sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
Hey, this is Cherrie Rivera, our Associate Director of Operational Excellence. Hey, we drop fresh new content every Wednesday at Stories from the River. Do us a favor and mash that subscribe button. Listen wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you're watching it today. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. We look forward to bringing you fresh new episodes every Wednesday. Thanks, Cherrie.
You're welcome. Thank you.